Hello and welcome to History's Cheat Sheet. Here we learn about history through bite-sized videos. Let's talk about the European Union. What do you think? Is Europe a peaceful and a safe place? Europeans are quite peace-loving softies, right? Well, if you look back a bit in history, you might want to reconsider. European history is full of devastating wars. If you study European history, you even get the impression that if there is one thing that Europeans know how to do, it is to wage war. But how did we come to the point where Europe is now one of the most peaceful and secure places in the world? Well, if we don't count a brutal war started by Russia in Ukraine. To understand this, we need to talk about the history of the European Union. Two major European countries, France and Germany, used to be fierce rivals and fought many wars against each other. In the first half of the 20th century, this rivalry first led to the outbreak of World War I, which was so terrible and devastating that it was thought to be the war to end all wars. But oh boy, were they wrong, because mere 20 years later came World War II, which was even more horrific and devastating. Tens of millions of soldiers and civilians perished, there was the Holocaust, cities and industries were destroyed and people suffered from hunger. After this, both French and Germans realized that things had gotten a bit out of hand. They thought it would be wise to make sure this never happened again. It was found that more international cooperation between European countries was needed, so that countries would work more towards common goals. Some even talked about the need for the United States of Europe, similar to the United States of America. Well, of course, it didn't happen like, let's create a union and then poof, there it is. An unprecedented organization in world history uniting 450 million people and 27 countries. No, my friends. Unification of Europe has been a long and complex process, and the organization called the European Union only came into existence in 1993, but the process of creating it started right after World War II. The emergence of today's European Union has been driven by two major developments: integration and expansion. Firstly, integration. By this I mean that European countries began to agree step by step on new areas for cooperation. The first step was in 1951, when the European Coal and Steel Community was created. I know, it sounds very strange. Why not something like European Peace Community or the Eternal Peace League or something like that? European Coal and Steel Community, like, come on! But this was because, firstly, coal and steel were some of the most important components of the economy at that time. And secondly, because coal and steel were needed to produce weapons and military equipment. The idea was that when France controlled its coal and steel industry and Germany controlled its own separately, then they would constantly want to conquer each other's industrial areas. Therefore, a supranational community was created to jointly control these industries. Coal and steel were just the beginning. Cooperation started getting more layers. In 1957, the European Economic Community was created, which meant a common market. This meant that the movement of all kinds of goods between member states was free. For example, if a Frenchman wanted to sell their blue cheese or wine to Germany, or if a Dutchman wanted to sell their tulips to Italy, they didn't have to pay customs duties. Additionally, cooperation began to develop nuclear power plants, modernize European agriculture, and support regional development, meaning helping less developed areas to catch up with the wealthier ones. The most important thing in European unification has been economic cooperation, because it increases the welfare of European people, making everyone's lives better. Over time, the way decisions are made in the European Union has also evolved. Initially, the community was governed by representatives appointed by each country, but for example, since 1979, European people directly elect their representatives to the Pan-European Parliament. Since then, countries hold parliamentary elections twice: their own national parliamentary elections and the European Parliament elections. And more forms of cooperation were added. In 1985, the Schengen visa area was established, removing border controls between countries so that people could travel freely from one member state to another. Today, a visa is required to travel to some distant country or to travel to Europe from a distant country, but there used to be such border control between European Union countries as well. But wait, there's more! In 2002, a common currency, the euro, was introduced in many European countries. Before that, each member state had its own currency, and traveling from one country to another required exchanging money and recalculating prices according to the exchange rate when buying goods from another country. But the euro has made movement and trading between countries much easier. So, as we have seen, European cooperation has become deeper over time, with more layers added. All these changes have been made through various treaties with quite boring names, which don't need to be detailed here. The important thing is that European unification has happened through treaties that countries have made and approved. Countries have wanted these changes themselves, and some proposed changes haven't been supported. For example, in 1952, the creation of a unified European army didn't gain support and the plan was shelved. Or there are countries that haven't adopted the euro, which is why, for example, Sweden continues to use its own currency. This is also why the European Union sometimes seems very complicated. There are all sorts of different decision-making bodies, one deciding one thing, another deciding something else. Sometimes they have to decide together. This is because the European Union wasn't built all at once, according to a clear plan, but rather gradually, and in a way that everyone agreed upon. But in addition to depth, the European Union has also grown. It has expanded, because what is Europe? Europe is a continent with about 50 countries, but for example, the coal and steel community, from which the European Union started, had as its members France, Italy, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Only 6 Western European countries. Why do you think only Western European? Because it was the Cold War, and Eastern Europe was under the influence of the Soviet Union, which simply didn't allow Eastern Europe to cooperate with the West. But from the beginning, the idea of European unification was that other countries were welcome to join, and over time the European Union began to expand. First, the United Kingdom, Ireland and Denmark joined, then Greece, then Spain and Portugal, then Austria, Sweden and Finland, and finally the Cold War ended, the Soviet Union and the Iron Curtain collapsed, and Eastern European countries were able to turn their gaze to the West. In 2004, the largest expansion of the European Union took place, when Cyprus and Malta joined, along with a bunch of Eastern European countries: Slovenia, Hungary, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia. Later, Romania and Bulgaria and Croatia joined. Even now, not all countries on the European continent belong to the European Union, but many do, and several countries are candidates for membership, hoping to join the European Union someday. The country wishing to join must make sure it meets the requirements set in Europe and must also hold a referendum to see if its citizens actually want to join. And the countries that are already members of the European Union must also agree to the new country's accession. For example, Estonia submitted its application for membership in 1995, and it took 9 years before it became a member of the Union. And of course, since the European country is a voluntary organization, it is also possible to leave. In 2016, the citizens of the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union, and they exited in 2020. This is Brexit, which you may have heard of. It took 4 years because both for joining and leaving there are many legal issues to be discussed and agreed upon. Today, the European Union is a very large and influential organization. Individually, even the largest European countries would be small. Germany, which has the largest population in the European Union, has just over 80 million people, while the United States has nearly 350 million people, and China has 1.4 billion people. But when we act together as the European Union, we are quite large. The European Union is one of the 3 largest economies in the world, along with the United States and China. In the past, such large entities in world history have usually been empires united by force. For example, the Persian Empire, the Roman Empire, the Mongol Empire, the British Empire, the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union. The European Union is unique because countries have voluntarily joined it, and it is based on common values: democracy, the rule of law, the human rights. And in this sense, the European Union has certainly been successful. Peace has been maintained since World War II. There hasn't been such a long period of peace in Europe before. What will happen to the European Union in the future? Where are we heading? Will the European Union continue to exist? Will it eventually become the United States of Europe, or will everything remain as it is now? I don't know. No one really knows. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Oh, and if by chance you are from Europe and you are watching this video in June 2024, then definitely go and vote for your preferred candidate for the European Parliament election. And that wraps up today's video. If you appreciate our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel and giving the video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you soon.